You promised me this wouldn't happen. How could you lie like that?
I didn't lie. Things changed. I can't stop it now.
The entire office tower went silent. Not because someone shouted. Not because something broke. But because someone did the unthinkable. In the center of the executive lounge, under the crystal chandelier, Miss Victoria, the tech billionaire's famous fiancée, raised her hand high and sharp, ready to slap another assistant like she always did. Everyone froze. The accountants, the receptionists, the security guards near the elevator. Even the office manager stopped breathing for a moment. But something strange happened. A hand caught her wrist. Not softly, not fearfully, but firmly, like a small tree refusing to bend in a storm. It was the new secretary, Emma. A quiet woman who came only 2 days ago. A woman nobody expected to even lift her eyes, much less hold the billionaire's fiancée's hand in front of everyone. Every worker gasped. "What do you think you're doing?" Victoria shouted, shocked and shaking in disbelief. But Emma didn't let go. Her hand stayed strong. Her eyes stayed calm. And unknown to everyone, the billionaire himself, Mr. Ryan Mitchell, stood just outside the hallway. He stopped walking. He heard the noise. He turned his head slowly. Then he saw it. His fiancée trying to slap an assistant, and the assistant stopping her. That moment would change everything. Fantastic story, and try to watch the video and you can gain a lot. If you're enjoying this story of courage and truth, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. New inspiring stories every week. Don't miss what happens next. Everyone in San Francisco knew about Ryan Mitchell, the young tech billionaire who owned Mitchell Innovations. People loved him because he was humble, kind, and always supported local charities. But not many people loved his fiancée, Victoria Bennett. She was beautiful. She was wealthy. She was famous on social media. But she was also proud, very, very proud. At the downtown office, Victoria acted like she owned everything, even though nothing there belonged to her. She shouted at employees, insulted them, and occasionally slapped them whenever she felt disrespected. And because they all needed their jobs, none of them dared to say a word. But Ryan never saw her true behavior. Whenever he was around, Victoria smiled, acted sweet, and pretended to be gentle. She fooled everyone outside the office, but not the people who worked inside. They saw everything, the bullying, the slaps, the wicked threats. Still, they endured it because Mitchell Innovations paid well enough to support their families. The health benefits were excellent. The salary covered rent in one of America's most expensive cities. Then, one Monday morning, the Human Resources Director gathered everyone in the main conference room. "We have a new executive secretary joining us today," she announced. "Please make her feel welcome." The employees looked at each other nervously. Another secretary. She won't last. Victoria will chase her away like the others. But when the new secretary entered, they were surprised. She was calm, quiet, soft-spoken, and something about her eyes looked strong, even though she wasn't trying to show it. Her name was Emma Rose, and she came from a small town in Oregon to work and send money home for her sick father. Everyone liked her at once, but they also whispered warnings to her during lunch break. "Stay out of Miss Victoria's way. Don't talk when she's angry. If she wants to yell at you, just accept it." Emma only nodded politely, but deep inside her, she knew she wouldn't allow anyone to treat her like a doormat. Still, she stayed quiet. She worked hard. She avoided trouble. Until the third day, when everything changed. It started with something simple. Victoria misplaced a designer handbag and began shouting at everyone in the open office space. "Who touched my things? Who moved my bag?" Employees scattered like scared birds, hiding behind their cubicles. She stormed through the floor, screaming at the assistants. She pushed one. She hit another on the shoulder. She insulted everyone. "Useless people, all of you." Then her eyes landed on Emma, who was quietly organizing files at her desk. "You, new girl, come here." Emma stood up slowly and walked forward, her heart beating fast but her face calm. "Did you touch my bag?" Victoria shouted in her face. "No, ma'am," Emma said softly. "I haven't been near your office." Victoria's face twisted in anger. "You dare talk back to me?" Before anyone could blink, Victoria raised her hand to slap her. Everyone looked away, too scared to watch. But when the slap came down, it didn't land, because Emma's hand shot up and caught it. Firm. Steady. Unshaking. That was the moment the entire office floor froze. As Victoria struggled to free her wrist, shocked and embarrassed, something happened behind them all. A voice said loudly, "So this is how you treat people." Everyone turned. Victoria's face dropped. Ryan's heart stopped. Because the voice belonged to someone who had the power to expose everything. And that person was the last person Victoria ever wanted to see. Standing beside Ryan with arms folded and eyebrows raised was Margaret Torres, the woman who had mentored Victoria when she was younger. People said Margaret was the only person Victoria feared. Not because she was mean, but because Margaret always told her the truth without fear, even when Victoria hated hearing it. "Margaret." Victoria stuttered, her voice suddenly small. But Margaret didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just looked at Victoria, then at Emma, then back at Victoria again. "So this is who you have become," Margaret said quietly. Her voice was soft, but it felt like thunder rolling through the room. The workers bowed their heads. Even Ryan looked shocked. Victoria finally yanked her hand free and stepped back, trying to regain her composure. This woman grabbed me first," she shouted, pointing at Emma. But Margaret shook her head slowly. "I saw everything," she said. "And so did he." She tilted her head toward Ryan. Victoria's heart dropped like a stone. Ryan's eyes were cold, colder than anyone had ever seen them. But he didn't speak yet. He simply stood there, looking at the woman he thought he would marry. The woman he thought he knew. "You promised me you had changed," Margaret said to Victoria. "You promised me you were working on your attitude." Victoria swallowed hard. I am," she said quickly. "Margaret, you know I'm trying, but—" Margaret lifted a hand to silence her. "Trying? By slapping employees? By insulting everyone? By embarrassing yourself in front of your future husband?" The workers kept their eyes down. Some felt pity for Victoria. Others felt she finally deserved this moment. Emma quietly stepped away, hands folded, eyes down. She didn't want trouble. She only wanted respect. But Victoria wasn't done. She pointed at Emma again, her voice rising with desperation. "This woman disrespected me. Why is everyone defending her? She's just a secretary." That statement made the air change. Slowly, Ryan's eyes lifted. His voice was soft but heavy with disappointment. "No one in this company is just anything." Victoria looked at him, stunned. But he wasn't finished. "Everyone here has a family. Everyone here has feelings. Everyone here works hard. And every one of them deserves respect." Victoria blinked fast, her confidence crumbling. Ryan continued, his voice steady and firm. "You've been coming to this office for months, Victoria. I thought you understood what we stand for here. I thought you shared my values." "I do," Victoria insisted. "Ryan, Then why," Ryan interrupted, "do I keep hearing complaints? Why do employees request transfers to other floors? Why did 3 assistants quit last month?" The room remained silent. The truth hung in the air like a heavy fog. Margaret stepped forward. "Ryan, there's something else you need to know." Victoria's eyes widened in panic. "Margaret, no. Please." But Margaret continued. "This isn't the first time Victoria has hurt someone." Ryan's expression hardened. "What do you mean?" Margaret took a deep breath. "Perhaps Victoria should tell you herself. About what happened in Boston." Victoria's entire body began to shake. That was years ago. It has nothing to do with now. It has everything to do with now, Margaret said firmly. Because you haven't changed at all. Ryan looked between the two women, confusion and concern written across his face. Someone needs to tell me what's going on. Right now. Victoria covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling. Emma stood quietly in the corner, watching the scene unfold, wondering what secret could be so terrible that it would make a confident woman like Victoria fall apart. The answer would come soon. And it would shock everyone. The tension in the executive lounge was suffocating. Ryan waited, his patience wearing thin. Margaret stood firm, and Victoria trembled like a leaf in a storm. "Margaret, please," Victoria whispered one more time. "Don't do this." But Margaret's expression was resolute. "You've had years to tell him yourself. You chose not to." Ryan stepped closer to Victoria. "Tell me what?" Victoria's lips trembled, but no words came out. Margaret sighed deeply. 5 years ago, when Victoria was working at a startup in Boston, there was an incident with a junior employee. "Margaret!" Victoria cried out. But Margaret continued. A young woman named Sarah Chen worked as Victoria's assistant. One day, Victoria accused Sarah of stealing client information and selling it to competitors. The employees in the room exchanged shocked glances. "Victoria made the accusation publicly," Margaret went on. "She humiliated Sarah in front of the entire company. She demanded Sarah be fired immediately and threatened to press charges." Ryan's jaw tightened. Was it true? Did Sarah steal the information? Margaret shook her head. No. A week later, they discovered that Victoria herself had accidentally sent the files to the wrong email address. It was her mistake, not Sarah's. Victoria sobbed into her hands. "It was an accident. I didn't know." "But by then," Margaret interrupted, her voice heavy with sadness, "the damage was done. Sarah's reputation was destroyed. She couldn't find work anywhere in the tech industry. Her colleagues had turned against her. Her professional life was ruined." Emma felt her heart clench with sympathy for the unknown Sarah. Ryan's voice was barely above a whisper. "What happened to her?" Margaret's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Sarah fell into a deep depression. She moved back home to Seattle. And 6 months later..." Margaret paused, struggling to continue. "She took her own life." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Victoria collapsed into a chair, her face buried in her hands, her whole body shaking with sobs. Ryan stood frozen, his face pale with shock. "Victoria, is this true?" Victoria looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. "I didn't know she would. I never thought. I tried to apologize, Ryan. I tried to fix it, but she wouldn't talk to me. She blocked me everywhere. I wanted to make it right." "You ruined an innocent woman's life," Ryan said, his voice hollow. "And you never told me." "I was scared," Victoria cried. "I was scared you would leave me. I was scared everyone would hate me. I've been trying to be better, Ryan. I swear I have." Margaret shook her head sadly. "But you're not better, Victoria. You're still doing the same things. Different city, different people, but the same behavior." Ryan turned away from Victoria, running his hands through his hair. The weight of this revelation was crushing him. Emma stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, if I may, perhaps some people deserve a second chance to truly change." Everyone looked at Emma in surprise. Victoria's tear-filled eyes met Emma's. "Why would you defend me? After what I tried to do to you?" Emma spoke softly but clearly. "Because I believe people can change if they genuinely want to. But they have to face the truth first. They have to admit what they've done and take responsibility." Ryan looked at Emma with newfound respect. Then he turned back to Victoria. "Emma is right," he said. This is your chance, Victoria. Right here, right now. Take responsibility. Not just with words, but with real change. Victoria stood up slowly, wiping her tears. For the first time, something shifted in her expression. The defensiveness faded, replaced by genuine remorse. You're right, she whispered. All of you are right. I've been horrible. I've hurt people because I was hurt. I've been cruel because I was scared of being weak. She looked at the employees around the room. I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Margaret watched her carefully. Words are a start, Victoria. But what matters now is what you do next. Victoria nodded, understanding the gravity of her situation. But just as the tension began to ease, Ryan's phone buzzed loudly. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed completely. What is it? Margaret asked, noticing his reaction. Ryan's voice was tight. It's an email from my lawyer. Someone has filed a lawsuit against Victoria. And against me, as her fiancée. Victoria's face went white. What? Who? Ryan read from his phone, his voice shaking. Sarah Chen's family. They're suing for wrongful death and emotional damages. The room erupted in gasps. Victoria screamed. No, no, this can't be happening. Margaret closed her eyes, pain written across her face. Emma felt her legs go weak. This situation was spiraling into something much bigger than anyone had anticipated. Ryan looked at Victoria with a mixture of sadness and determination. They're demanding a meeting. Tomorrow. And they want you there, Victoria. That evening, Ryan sat alone in his penthouse apartment overlooking the San Francisco Bay. The city lights sparkled below, but he felt no joy looking at them. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from his legal team, from Margaret, from his business partners. Everyone wanted to know what was happening, what he planned to do, whether the lawsuit would damage the company's reputation. But Ryan couldn't think about any of that. All he could think about was Sarah Chen, a young woman he'd never met, whose life had been destroyed, and who had seen no other way out of her pain. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called out. Margaret entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. I figured you could use some company. Ryan accepted the coffee gratefully. Thank you for telling me the truth today. Margaret sat down across from him. I should have told you sooner. I kept hoping Victoria would tell you herself, that she would finally face what she'd done. But she never did. Why didn't she? Ryan asked, genuine confusion in his voice. If she truly loved me, why hide something so important? Margaret considered this carefully. Fear. Ryan. Victoria has spent her whole life terrified of being rejected, of being seen as less than perfect. Her parents were demanding. Her childhood was full of impossible expectations. When she makes mistakes, she panics and tries to cover them up rather than face them. That doesn't excuse what she did, Ryan said firmly. No, it doesn't, Margaret agreed. But it helps explain it. Understanding doesn't mean forgiving, but it can help us respond with wisdom rather than just anger. Ryan sipped his coffee thoughtfully. The wedding is supposed to be in 3 months. My mother already ordered flowers. The venue is booked. Invitations were sent last week. And Margaret prompted gently. And I don't know if I can marry someone who hid something like this from me, Ryan admitted. How can I trust her? How can I build a life with someone who doesn't tell me the truth? Margaret nodded. Those are the right questions to ask. Ryan stood up and walked to the window. But there's another part of me that wonders. Am I being hypocritical? Haven't I made mistakes? Haven't I hurt people without meaning to? The difference, Margaret said, is whether you acknowledge your mistakes and work to change. Victoria has been running from her past instead of facing it. Until today, Ryan said quietly. Yes, Margaret agreed. Today something shifted in her. I saw it. The question is whether that shift will last, or whether it's just temporary because she got caught. Ryan turned back to face Margaret. What do you think I should do? Margaret stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder. Only you can decide that, Ryan. But whatever you choose, make sure it's based on who Victoria actually is, not who you hoped she would be. After Margaret left, Ryan sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about truth, about love, about the difference between the two. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria sat in her luxury apartment, surrounded by designer furniture and expensive artwork, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. Her phone lay silent on the coffee table. Normally, it would be buzzing with messages from friends, invitations to parties, notifications from social media. But tonight, news of the lawsuit had spread quickly through their social circle, and suddenly no one wanted to talk to her. She picked up a framed photo of herself and Ryan, taken at a charity gala 6 months ago. They looked so happy, so perfect together. But it had all been built on lies, lies of omission, lies about who she really was. Victoria thought about Sarah Chen for the first time in years. Really thought about her. She remembered Sarah's bright smile on her first day of work, her enthusiasm, her kindness to everyone in the office. She remembered the look on Sarah's face when Victoria had accused her publicly. The shock. The hurt. The betrayal. And she remembered the last time she tried to apologize, when Sarah had looked at her with empty eyes and said, "You destroyed my life, and you don't even care." But Victoria had cared. She'd just been too proud to show it properly, too scared to face the full weight of what she'd done. A soft knock on her door startled her. She wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she opened the door to find Emma standing in the hallway, holding a bag of takeout food. "What are you doing here?" Victoria asked, genuinely confused. Emma held up the bag. "I figured you probably hadn't eaten. And I thought you might want some company." Victoria stared at her in disbelief. "After everything I've done, after I tried to slap you, you're bringing me food?" Emma shrugged. "Everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're at their lowest point. That's when people need it most." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. She stepped aside, letting Emma enter. They sat together in Victoria's expensive living room, eating Chinese takeout from paper containers. And for the first time, Victoria told the whole truth about Boston, about Sarah, about the guilt she'd been carrying for 5 years. Emma listened without judgment, without interruption, just listened. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Victoria finally asked. Emma thought for a moment. "Because I've made mistakes too. Different mistakes, maybe not as serious, but mistakes nonetheless. And I know what it's like to need someone to believe you can be better." Victoria wiped her tears. "I don't know if I can face Sarah's family tomorrow. I don't know what to say to them." "Start with the truth," Emma said simply. "Start with, 'I'm sorry.' Not sorry that you got caught, but genuinely sorry for what you did. And then listen to them. Let them tell you what your actions cost them." Victoria nodded slowly. "Will you come with me? To the meeting?" Emma hesitated. "Why would you want me there?" "Because," Victoria said honestly, "you're the only person who's treated me like a human being today, even though I least deserve it. And I think I need someone there who knows how to do the right thing, because I'm not sure I know how anymore." Emma considered this, then nodded. "Okay, I'll come." As Emma left that night, Victoria stood at her window, looking out at the same city lights Ryan was watching from his penthouse. Tomorrow would be one of the hardest days of her life. But for the first time in 5 years, she felt ready to face the truth. The conference room in the law office felt cold and sterile. Ryan sat on one side of the long table with his lawyer, Margaret, and surprisingly, Emma. Victoria sat beside them, looking smaller than anyone had ever seen her, her designer clothes seeming out of place in this moment of raw emotion. On the other side of the table sat 3 people. Sarah Chen's parents and her older brother, David. Mrs. Chen's eyes were red from years of crying. Mr. Chen's face was stern and weathered with grief. But it was David whose expression cut the deepest, a mixture of anger, pain, and exhaustion from carrying the weight of his sister's death for so long. The lawyer began with formal introductions, but David interrupted. "Let's skip the formalities," he said, his voice tight. "We're here because my sister is dead, and she," he pointed at Victoria, "is the reason why." Victoria flinched but didn't look away. Mrs. Chen spoke next, her voice trembling. "Sarah was our youngest. She was kind, gentle, so excited about her career. When she called us that day, crying, saying she'd been accused of stealing, we didn't understand. Our Sarah would never steal anything." "But everyone believed it," Mr. Chen added bitterly. "Her colleagues stopped talking to her. Her friends distanced themselves. Job interviews went nowhere because of the rumors." David leaned forward. "Do you know what it's like to watch your sister fade away? To see the light go out of her eyes, day by day, until there's nothing left?" Victoria's hands shook in her lap. Tears streamed down her face, but she remained silent, letting them speak. "She used to call me every night," David continued, his voice breaking, "telling me she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't see a future for herself anymore. And I kept telling her it would get better, that people would forget, that she could start over." Mrs. Chen sobbed quietly. But she couldn't see it. The shame was too much. The pain was too deep. The room was heavy with grief. Finally, Victoria spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "There are no words that can undo what I did. There's no apology big enough, no amount of money that can bring Sarah back." David's eyes flashed. "Then why are we here?" Victoria looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Because you deserve to hear me say it to your faces, without lawyers speaking for me, without public relations statements. You deserve to hear me admit that I destroyed your daughter's life because of my own insecurity and pride." She took a shaky breath. "Sarah didn't steal anything. I made a mistake with the files, and instead of admitting it, I blamed her. I was terrified of looking incompetent, of losing my position, of being seen as a failure. So I threw her under the bus to save myself." Mrs. Chen wiped her eyes. "You knew she was innocent." "Not at first," Victoria admitted. "But when I found out the truth a week later, I should have gone to her immediately. I should have cleared her name publicly, the same way I destroyed it publicly. Instead, I tried to apologize privately, tried to fix it quietly, because I was too proud to admit my mistake in front of everyone." "And Sarah paid the price," Mr. Chen said heavily. "Yes," Victoria whispered. "She paid with her life, and I have to live with that forever." David stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. The room waited in tense silence. When he turned back, his face was filled with anguish. "Do you know what Sarah's last words to me were?" Victoria shook her head, more tears falling. She said, "I just wanted to do good work. I just wanted to help people." "Why wasn't that enough?" Victoria covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Emma reached over and gently placed a hand on Victoria's shoulder, not to comfort her, but to steady her, to keep her grounded in this moment of accountability. Ryan watched it all, his heart breaking for everyone in the room. For Sarah's family and their unbearable loss. For Victoria and the guilt she'd carried. For the tragedy that never should have happened. Margaret spoke for the first time. What Sarah's family is asking for isn't just financial compensation. They want to ensure this never happens to anyone else. David returned to his seat. "We want a foundation created in Sarah's name. A fund to help young professionals who've been wrongly accused or bullied in the workplace. We want counseling resources, legal support, career rehabilitation programs." Victoria nodded immediately. "Yes. Anything. I'll fund it myself." "It's not about your money," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "It's about making sure Sarah's death meant something. That some good comes from this terrible tragedy." Ryan spoke up. "Mitchell Innovations will match whatever Victoria contributes. And will implement new workplace policies, anonymous reporting systems, mandatory training on professional conduct, support programs for employees facing difficulties. David studied Ryan carefully. You didn't know about this. Why are you taking responsibility? Because it happened in our industry, Ryan said. Because I want to be part of the solution. And because if I'd known Victoria's history, I could have helped prevent what happened at my company yesterday. The Chens exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Mr. Chen spoke. We don't want Victoria to go to prison. That won't bring Sarah back. Victoria looked up, surprised. But we do want her to truly change, Mrs. Chen added. We want her to work with the foundation, to speak to other companies about workplace bullying, to use her experience to help others avoid the same mistakes. David leaned forward. We want you to spend the rest of your life making sure no one else's sister, daughter, or friend goes through what Sarah went through. Can you do that? Victoria met his eyes directly. I can. I will. I promise you, I will spend every day trying to honor Sarah's memory by being better and doing better. The lawyer began drafting the agreement. Financial compensation for the family, the establishment of the Sarah Chen Foundation, Victoria's commitment to advocacy work, and new policies at Mitchell Innovations. As they worked through the details, Emma quietly excused herself to get water. In the hallway, David caught up with her. You're the secretary who stood up to her yesterday, he said. Emma nodded. Thank you, David said simply. Thank you for stopping the cycle. For not letting her hurt someone else the way she hurt Sarah. Emma's eyes welled with tears. I wish I could have done it for your sister. David gave her a sad smile. So do I. But you did it for the next person, and the person after that. That matters. When they returned to the conference room, the agreement was nearly complete. But Mrs. Chen had one more request. We want to meet regularly, she said to Victoria. Not as adversaries, but as people committed to the same cause. We want to see you follow through. We want to see real change. Victoria nodded. I understand. And I welcome that accountability. As the meeting concluded, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Chen stood up and walked around the table to Victoria. Victoria stood uncertainly, not knowing what to expect. And then Mrs. Chen did something that shocked everyone. She placed her hand gently on Victoria's shoulder and said, Sarah was a forgiving person. She would want good to come from this. Don't waste this chance. Victoria broke down completely, and for a moment, Mrs. Chen let her cry, this mother who had lost her own daughter, offering a moment of grace to the woman who had caused that loss. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, maybe not ever. But it was a start. A chance for healing. A path toward redemption. And sometimes, that's all anyone can ask for. The days following the meeting were the hardest Victoria had ever faced. News of the lawsuit and the settlement spread through San Francisco's tech community like wildfire. Some people applauded her for taking responsibility. Others condemned her, saying she should face criminal charges. Victoria's social media accounts, once filled with glamorous photos and thousands of likes, became battlegrounds of public opinion. The comments were brutal. She killed someone and bought her way out. Money can't bring Sarah back. She should be in prison, not making foundation announcements. Ryan watched Victoria struggle with the public scrutiny. Part of him wanted to protect her. Another part wondered if this was the accountability she needed to face. He had made his decision about their relationship, but he hadn't told her yet. At the Mitchell Innovations office, things had changed dramatically. Ryan called an all-staff meeting in the main auditorium. Employees filed in nervously, whispering among themselves. Emma sat near the back, watching as Ryan took the stage. Many of you have heard about the events of last week, Ryan began. And you deserve to know the truth directly from me. The room went silent. Victoria Bennett, my fiancée, was involved in a tragedy 5 years ago that resulted in the death of a young woman named Sarah Chen. That tragedy occurred because of workplace bullying, false accusations, and a failure to take responsibility. Gasps echoed through the auditorium. Ryan continued, his voice steady but emotional. I didn't know about this history when Victoria and I started dating. But I should have noticed the signs. I should have paid more attention to how she treated people when she thought I wasn't watching. Emma felt her heart clench. Ryan was taking responsibility too, even though he hadn't done anything wrong. Effective immediately, Mitchell Innovations is implementing comprehensive changes, Ryan announced. We're creating an anonymous reporting system for workplace issues. We're mandating quarterly training on respectful workplace conduct for everyone, including me. We're establishing a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, harassment, or abuse of power. The employees began to nod, some even clapping softly. We're also partnering with the Sarah Chen Foundation to provide resources for anyone in our industry who faces wrongful accusations or workplace trauma. And 10% of our annual profits will go toward supporting this foundation's work. More applause followed. But there's something else I need to address, Ryan said, his voice dropping lower. My personal relationship with Victoria. The room went completely silent. Emma held her breath. Many of you have asked if I'm still going to marry her. If I'm going to stand by her after everything that's been revealed. Victoria sat in Ryan's office upstairs, watching the live stream of his speech on his computer, tears streaming down her face. I've spent the last week thinking about that question, Ryan continued. Thinking about love, about loyalty, about forgiveness and accountability. And I've realized something important. He paused, looking out at his employees. Love isn't about ignoring someone's flaws or pretending their mistakes don't matter. Real love means seeing someone fully, their strengths and their weaknesses, their best moments and their worst, and then making a conscious choice about what to do with that knowledge. Emma found herself nodding. Victoria has caused real harm. She has work to do, years of work, to make amends and to truly change. That work isn't optional. It's necessary. Ryan took a deep breath. And I have decided that I cannot marry her. Victoria gasped upstairs, her hand covering her mouth. Not because I don't care about her, Ryan continued, but because she needs time to do this work without the pressure of planning a wedding, without the distraction of our relationship. She needs space to rebuild herself, not as my fiancée, but as her own person. The auditorium was completely still. This doesn't mean I'll never marry her. It means that if we're going to have a future together, it has to be built on truth, on growth, and on genuine change. Not on hiding from the past, but on facing it directly. Emma felt tears running down her cheeks. Around her, other employees were crying too. I'm telling you all this because transparency matters. Because you deserve to work for a company whose values are clear and consistent. And because I want you to know that I'm committed to making this a place where everyone, from the CEO to the newest intern, is treated with dignity and respect. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. After the meeting, Emma returned to her desk to find Victoria standing there, waiting for her. Victoria's eyes were red and swollen. He called off the wedding, she said simply. I know, Emma replied gently. I heard. He's right to do it, Victoria said, her voice hollow. I know he's right. But it still hurts. Emma set down her bag. Of course it hurts. But maybe pain is necessary sometimes. Maybe it's the only thing that makes us really change. Victoria nodded slowly. I don't know who I am without him. I don't know who I am without being Ryan Mitchell's fiancée. Then maybe that's what you need to figure out, Emma said. Who Victoria Bennett is when no one else is watching. What kind of person you want to be. Victoria looked at her curiously. Why do you keep helping me? Why do you keep saying these things to me? Emma considered the question. Because I believe redemption is possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. And I think you're finally ready to do the real work. Victoria wiped her eyes. The foundation has its first board meeting tomorrow. Sarah's parents will be there. Are you ready? Emma asked. No, Victoria admitted. But I'm going anyway. For the first time, Emma smiled at her. That's growth. That evening, Ryan sat in his office long after everyone had gone home. He stared at the engagement ring he'd bought for Victoria, a beautiful diamond that now felt like a symbol of everything he'd gotten wrong. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Emma entered hesitantly. "I'm sorry to bother you, sir. I just wanted to say, what you did today took courage." Ryan looked up at her. Did it? Or was it just the only right thing to do? "Both can be true," Emma said. Ryan set down the ring box. "How do you know when to give someone a second chance, Emma? How do you know if someone is really changing or just performing change?" Emma thought about her own father, struggling with addiction back home, the many times she'd hoped he would change, the disappointments she'd faced. "I think," she said slowly, "you watch their actions over time. You see if they keep doing the work even when no one's watching. Even when it's hard. Even when they don't get praise for it." Ryan nodded. "That's wise. And you trust your gut," Emma added. "If something feels wrong, it probably is." "My gut says Victoria can change," Ryan admitted. "But my gut also says she has a long road ahead of her first." "Then trust both of those instincts," Emma said. As she turned to leave, Ryan called out, "Emma." She turned back. "Thank you," he said, "for standing up to her that day. For starting all of this. I know it wasn't easy." Emma smiled softly. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't about it being easy. It's about it being necessary. After she left, Ryan sat in the darkness of his office, thinking about necessary things, hard things, and the long road to redemption that lay ahead for all of them. 3 months had passed since that fateful day in the office. The Sarah Chen Foundation was now a reality, operating out of a renovated building in downtown San Francisco. Victoria stood in the main office, looking at the walls covered with photos of young professionals who had been helped by the foundation. People who had faced wrongful accusations, workplace bullying, or career-ending situations and had found support, resources, and hope through the foundation's programs. "Ms. Bennett, the counseling center is ready for the ribbon cutting," said Jennifer, the foundation's executive director. A woman Victoria had hired specifically because she had a reputation for holding people accountable. Victoria nodded, straightening her simple blouse. She no longer wore designer clothes every day. She no longer needed to prove her worth through expensive things. The ceremony was small but meaningful. Sarah's parents were there, along with David, Margaret, Ryan, Emma, and several of the foundation's first beneficiaries. When it was Victoria's turn to speak, she stepped up to the microphone with trembling hands. 3 months ago, I stood in a law office and faced the family of a woman whose life I destroyed, she began. I expected them to hate me. I deserved their hatred. The crowd listened quietly. But instead of hatred, they offered me something I didn't deserve, a chance to make things right. Not to erase what I did, because that's impossible, but to ensure that Sarah Chen's death would save others from similar tragedies. Victoria's voice grew stronger. This foundation isn't about my redemption. It's about Sarah's legacy. Every person we help, every career we save, every life we support, that's Sarah's impact on the world. That's the good that can come from tragedy if we choose to let it. Mrs. Chen wiped tears from her eyes. Mr. Chen squeezed his wife's hand. Sarah was kind, talented, and full of potential, Victoria continued. And because of my cowardice and pride, she never got to fulfill that potential. So now, this foundation will help others fulfill theirs. After the ceremony, David approached Victoria. That was a good speech, he said. Thank you, Victoria replied. But it's the work that matters, not the words. David nodded approvingly. You're learning. Over the next few weeks, Victoria threw herself into the foundation's work with an intensity that surprised everyone. She personally met with each person who came seeking help, listened to their stories, and connected them with resources. She also began speaking at tech companies across the Bay Area, sharing her story, not as a hero who had redeemed herself, but as a cautionary tale about the real consequences of workplace cruelty. "I'm not here to be inspirational," she would tell audiences. "I'm here to show you what happens when pride matters more than people. When image matters more than integrity. When fear of failure leads to destroying someone else." The speaking engagements were brutal. Audience members asked hard questions. Some were hostile. Some told her she hadn't suffered enough. Others shared their own stories of being bullied or wrongly accused. Victoria took it all in, never defensive, never making excuses. Meanwhile, Ryan had been watching from a distance. Not coldly, but carefully. He attended every board meeting of the foundation, observed Victoria's transformation, and wondered if what he was seeing was real or temporary. Emma noticed his internal struggle. "You still love her," she said one day as they reviewed foundation reports together. Ryan didn't deny it. Love was never the problem. Trust was the problem. "And now?" Emma asked. "Now I see someone doing the work," Ryan admitted. "But I also know that 3 months isn't enough time to judge lasting change." Emma nodded. "How long is enough?" "I don't know," Ryan said honestly. That evening, Victoria called Ryan. It was the first time they'd spoken privately since he'd called off the wedding. "Hi," she said nervously. "Hi," Ryan replied. There was a long pause. "I'm not calling to ask you to take me back," Victoria said quickly. "I'm calling to say thank you. Thank you for doing what I couldn't do for myself, stopping me before I hurt anyone else." Ryan felt his chest tighten. "You're doing good work, Victoria." "I'm trying," she said. "Some days are harder than others. Some days I want to quit, to run away, to hide from all of this." "But you don't," Ryan observed. "But I don't," Victoria confirmed. "Because Sarah doesn't get to have hard days anymore. She doesn't get to try again or make different choices. So I have to keep going for her." Ryan closed his eyes. That's real growth, Victoria." "Maybe," Victoria said. "Or maybe it's just me finally facing consequences I should have faced 5 years ago." Another pause. "Ryan." Victoria's voice was tentative. "Yeah. I don't expect us to get back together. I don't even know if I want that right now, because I need to figure out who I am first. But I want you to know that I understand now why you made the choice you did. And I'm grateful for it." Ryan felt tears welling up. "I'm proud of you, Victoria. Truly." After they hung up, Ryan sat alone in his apartment, realizing that sometimes love means letting someone go so they can become who they're meant to be. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is give them the space to change. 6 months after the foundation's opening, a crisis emerged that would test everything Victoria had learned. A young man named Marcus Thompson walked into the foundation's office, angry and desperate. He had been accused of harassment at his tech startup, fired publicly, and blacklisted in the industry. "I didn't do it," Marcus insisted to Victoria during their first meeting. "My supervisor made up the accusations because I reported him for stealing company funds." Victoria listened carefully, remembering another young person who had said similar words, Sarah. "Tell me everything," Victoria said, pulling out a notepad. Marcus explained that his supervisor, a man named Derek Hughes, had been embezzling money from their startup for months. When Marcus discovered evidence and reported it to HR, Derek had retaliated by accusing Marcus of making inappropriate comments to female colleagues. "No one believed me," Marcus said, his voice breaking. Derek had been there longer, had more connections. HR took his side immediately. "They fired me the same day, didn't even investigate properly." Victoria felt her stomach turn. This was exactly the kind of situation the foundation was created to address. "Do you have evidence of the embezzlement?" Victoria asked. Marcus pulled out a flash drive. "Emails, financial records, everything. But no one will look at it. They've already made up their minds about me." Over the next few weeks, Victoria worked tirelessly on Marcus's case. She hired investigators, connected him with lawyers, and used her own connections in the tech industry to get people to listen. But then something complicated happened. One of the women Derek had named as Marcus's alleged victims reached out to Victoria directly. "I need to talk to you," the woman, Angela, said over coffee. "About Marcus Thompson." Victoria braced herself. "What about him?" Angela looked uncomfortable. "Derek Hughes pressured me to sign a statement saying Marcus made inappropriate comments to me. But it wasn't true. Marcus never said anything inappropriate." Victoria's heart raced. "Why did you sign it?" "Because Derek threatened my job," Angela admitted, tears forming. "I'm a single mother. I couldn't afford to lose my income. I'm so ashamed, but I was scared." Victoria felt a wave of emotions: anger at Derek, sympathy for Angela, and a deep recognition of how complex these situations could be. "Will you give a new statement?" Victoria asked gently. "Tell the truth this time?" Angela hesitated. "Will I get in trouble for lying before?" "I don't know," Victoria said honestly. "But I do know that Marcus's life is being destroyed because of a lie. Just like Sarah Chen's life was destroyed because of my lie." Angela looked up sharply. "You're that Victoria? The one from the foundation?" Victoria nodded. Angela studied her face. "They say you killed someone with your accusations." "Not directly," Victoria said quietly. "But yes, my false accusations contributed to her death. And I have to live with that every day." Angela wiped her eyes. "I don't want to live with that. I don't want Marcus to do something desperate because of my lie." "Then help us tell the truth," Victoria urged. Angela agreed. With Angela's new testimony and the evidence Marcus had collected, the foundation was able to build a case. They presented it to the startup's board of directors, to the press, and eventually to law enforcement. The investigation revealed that Derek Hughes had indeed been embezzling funds and had systematically retaliated against anyone who questioned him. He had falsely accused 3 other employees before Marcus. Derek was arrested. Marcus was vindicated and offered his job back with a promotion. At a celebration at the foundation, Marcus pulled Victoria aside. "Thank you," he said. "You saved my life. I was at the end of my rope." Victoria shook her head. "I didn't save you. You saved yourself by not giving up, by fighting for the truth. But you listened when no one else would," Marcus insisted. "You believed me." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Someone should have believed Sarah. Someone should have listened to her. "I'm just trying to make sure others have the chance she never got." Marcus hugged her, and Victoria let herself cry. For Sarah, for Marcus, for all the people who had been wrongly accused and not believed. That evening, Victoria received an unexpected visitor at her apartment. It was Ryan. "I heard about the Marcus Thompson case," he said when she opened the door. Victoria invited him in. "It was complicated. But you did the right thing," Ryan said. "Even when it was hard. Even when you didn't know how it would turn out." Victoria nodded. "It reminded me so much of Sarah. The fear in Marcus's eyes. The desperation. I couldn't let him go through what she went through." Ryan sat down on her couch. "I've been watching you these past 6 months, Victoria. Really watching." Victoria's heart started pounding. And I see someone completely different from the person I thought I knew," Ryan said. "You're humble now. You listen. You do the work even when it's thankless." "I'm trying," Victoria said softly. "You're succeeding," Ryan corrected. "You're not just performing change. You're actually changed." Victoria didn't know what to say. Ryan continued, "I told myself I needed to see long-term growth before I could trust you again. I thought it would take years. But watching you with the foundation, seeing how you handled Marcus's case, the way you're living every day, I think I've seen enough." Victoria's breath caught. "What are you saying?" Ryan stood up and walked to where she sat. "I'm saying I'd like to try again. Not to go back to who we were, because that relationship was built on illusions, but to start fresh, with honesty and truth as our foundation. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Ryan, I don't know if I'm ready. I'm still figuring out who I am. I know, Ryan said gently. And I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to have dinner with me. Just dinner. As two people getting to know each other again. Victoria thought about it. 6 months ago, she would have said yes immediately, desperate to hold on to him. But now, she understood the importance of doing things right. Can I think about it? She asked. Ryan smiled. Of course. Take all the time you need. After he left, Victoria called Emma. Ryan wants to try again, Victoria said. And? Emma prompted. And I'm scared, Victoria admitted. What if I mess it up again? What if I'm not actually as changed as he thinks I am? Emma was quiet for a moment. Victoria, 6 months ago, you wouldn't have asked those questions. You would have jumped at the chance without thinking. The fact that you're scared, that you're questioning yourself, that shows how much you've grown. So what should I do? Victoria asked. What do you want to do? Emma countered. Victoria thought about it. I want to say yes. But I also want to make sure I'm saying yes for the right reasons. Not because I need him, but because I want to build something real with him. Then tell him that, Emma said simply. And Victoria did. 1 year had passed since Emma had stopped Victoria's hand from slapping her in the Mitchell Innovations office. 1 year since everything had fallen apart and then slowly been rebuilt. The Sarah Chen Foundation was thriving. They had helped over 200 people facing wrongful accusations or workplace trauma. They had implemented training programs at 50 tech companies across the country. And Sarah's story had become a catalyst for change in the industry. Victoria and Ryan had been dating again for 6 months, taking things slow, building trust brick by brick. Today was the foundation's 1-year anniversary celebration, and everyone who had been part of the journey was there. Sarah's parents stood near the front, looking at a memorial wall dedicated to their daughter. Photos of Sarah through the years, quotes from her friends and colleagues about her kindness, and a list of all the people who had been helped in her name. Mrs. Chen placed her hand on Victoria's shoulder. Sarah would be proud of this, she said softly. Victoria felt tears well up. Do you really think so? Yes, Mrs. Chen said firmly. My daughter believed in second chances. She believed people could grow and change. This foundation is proof that she was right. David approached them, carrying his young daughter. This is Emma, he said, introducing his child. Named after her Aunt Sarah and after someone else who made a difference. He looked at Emma Rose, who was standing nearby. Emma blushed. You didn't have to do that. Yes, we did, David said. You stood up when it mattered. You stopped the cycle. As the celebration continued, Marcus Thompson took the microphone to share his story. He talked about being wrongly accused, about the foundation's help, and about how he was now working with the foundation to help others in similar situations. A year ago, I wanted to give up, Marcus said. I couldn't see a way forward. But the Sarah Chen Foundation showed me that truth matters, that fighting for justice matters, and that there are people who will stand with you even in your darkest moments. The audience applauded. Then Victoria was called to the stage. She hadn't prepared a speech, preferring to let others share their stories rather than focusing on herself. But as she looked out at the crowd, at Sarah's family, at the people they'd helped, at Ryan and Emma and Margaret, she knew she had to say something. A year ago, I was the villain of this story, Victoria began, her voice steady but emotional. I was the person who caused pain, who destroyed lives, who refused to take responsibility for my actions. The room was silent. I'm not going to stand here and say I'm a hero now. I'm not. I'm just someone who finally faced the truth about myself and decided to do something about it. Victoria looked at Sarah's photo on the memorial wall. Sarah Chen deserved so much better than what I gave her. She deserved kindness, respect, and justice. I can't give her those things now, but I can honor her memory by making sure others receive what she was denied. Victoria's voice grew stronger. This foundation isn't my redemption story. It's Sarah's legacy. Every life we touch, every person we help, every wrong we right, that's Sarah's impact continuing in the world. That's the beautiful, brilliant, kind person she was making a difference even after death. Mrs. Chen was crying softly. Mr. Chen had his arm around her shoulders. So on this anniversary, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Sarah's family for giving me the chance to do this work. Thank you to everyone who held me accountable when I wanted to run away. Thank you to the people who believed change was possible even when I didn't believe it myself. Victoria looked directly at Emma. And thank you to a brave woman who stopped my hand 1 year ago, who refused to let me hurt another person, who showed me through her actions what real courage looks like. The crowd turned to look at Emma, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Because sometimes, Victoria concluded, the most powerful thing we can do is simply refuse to let wrong continue. Sometimes standing up, speaking out, and saying, no more, that changes everything. The applause was thunderous. After the speeches, Victoria found herself alone for a moment in the Foundation's library, a quiet room filled with resources on workplace rights, mental health support, and career development. Ryan found her there. Hey, he said softly. Hey, Victoria replied. That was a powerful speech, Ryan said, sitting beside her. Victoria shrugged. I just told the truth. You've gotten good at that, Ryan observed with a smile. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Victoria, Ryan said finally, I have something I want to ask you. Victoria's heart started racing. Okay. Ryan pulled out a small box, and Victoria's breath caught. But when he opened it, it wasn't an engagement ring. It was a key. This is a key to my house, Ryan said. I'm not proposing. I'm not rushing anything. But I'm saying that I trust you now. I believe in the person you've become. And I'd like you to have a key, to know you're welcome in my space, in my life, in my future. Victoria stared at the key, tears streaming down her face. We'll take it one day at a time, Ryan continued. We'll keep building trust, keep growing together. And someday, when we're both ready, maybe I'll ask you a different question with a different kind of ring. Victoria took the key with trembling hands. Ryan, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing the work, Ryan said. Say you'll keep being honest. Say you'll keep honoring Sarah's memory by being the best version of yourself. I will, Victoria whispered. I promise I will. They hugged, and for the first time in over a year, Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, genuine hope for the future. 2 years after that fateful day, Emma sat in her new office at the Sarah Chen Foundation. She had been promoted to Director of Outreach, working alongside Victoria to expand the foundation's reach across the country. Her father's health had improved with the medical care she could now afford. Her family was stable. And she had discovered a calling she never knew she had, helping others find their voices and stand up for themselves. Victoria knocked on Emma's office door. Ready for the board meeting? Emma nodded, gathering her papers. As they walked to the conference room together, Emma reflected on how much had changed. Victoria was no longer the proud, cruel woman who had tried to slap her 2 years ago. She was humble, hard-working, and genuinely committed to making a difference. The board meeting was productive. They discussed expanding the foundation to 3 new cities, creating a scholarship program in Sarah's name, and launching a podcast to share stories of workplace justice and redemption. Sarah's parents were actively involved in every decision, ensuring their daughter's values guided the foundation's work. After the meeting, Victoria had one more stop to make, a speaking engagement at a college business program. Emma accompanied her, as she often did. The auditorium was packed with students eager to learn about entrepreneurship, business ethics, and leadership. When Victoria took the stage, she didn't start with her successes. She started with her failures. I'm going to tell you about the worst thing I ever did, Victoria began. And I'm going to explain how that mistake became the catalyst for the most meaningful work of my life. She told Sarah's story. She told her own story. She didn't sugarcoat anything, didn't make excuses, didn't present herself as a hero. Some of you will make mistakes in your careers, Victoria said to the students. Some mistakes will be small. Others will be devastating. What matters is what you do after the mistake. A student raised her hand. How do you live with yourself after doing something so terrible? Victoria took a breath. Honestly, some days are harder than others. Some days I wake up and the guilt feels crushing. But then I remember that guilt without action is just self-pity. So I get up, I go to the foundation, and I do the work. Another student asked, "Do you think you've redeemed yourself?" Victoria shook her head. That's not for me to decide. Redemption isn't a finish line you cross and then you're done. It's a daily choice to keep doing better, to keep honoring the people you've hurt by being better. A young woman in the back stood up. I was wrongly accused of plagiarism last year. The Sarah Chen Foundation helped me clear my name and get back into school. Thank you. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry you had to go through it. After the event, as Victoria and Emma drove back to the foundation, Victoria was quiet. You okay? Emma asked. Victoria nodded. I was just thinking about how different my life could have been. If you hadn't stopped me that day, I would have kept hurting people. I would have married Ryan under false pretenses. I would have continued down that path until something even worse happened. But that's not what happened, Emma said gently. Because of you, Victoria insisted. You were brave enough to stop me. Emma smiled. We all need someone to stop us sometimes. Someone who cares enough to say, no more. That evening, there was a small private dinner at Ryan's house. Now Victoria and Ryan's house, as Victoria had moved in 6 months earlier. Margaret was there, along with Sarah's parents, David and his family, Marcus, and several other people whose lives had been touched by the foundation. As they sat around the table, sharing food and stories, Mrs. Chen raised her glass. I want to make a toast, she said, her voice strong. 2 years ago, we lost our daughter in a tragedy that never should have happened. The pain of losing Sarah will never go away completely. Everyone nodded, understanding. But, Mrs. Chen continued, from that tragedy has come something beautiful. This foundation, these friendships, the hundreds of people who have been helped, this is Sarah's legacy. This is proof that even in darkness, light can grow. She looked at Victoria. And sometimes the person who caused the darkness can become part of the light. Not by erasing what they did, but by dedicating their life to making sure it never happens again. Victoria wiped tears from her eyes. Mrs. Chen concluded, so here's to Sarah, who taught us about kindness. Here's to Emma, who taught us about courage. And here's to Victoria, who taught us that change is possible if we're brave enough to face the truth. Everyone raised their glasses. To Sarah. To Emma. To second chances. To truth. To redemption. Later that night, Victoria and Ryan stood on their balcony, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. I never imagined my life would look like this, Victoria said softly. Better or worse? Ryan asked. Victoria thought about it. Different. Harder in some ways. But more real. More meaningful. Ryan put his arm around her. I'm proud of you, Victoria. Every single day, I'm proud of you. Victoria leaned into him. Do you think we'll get married someday? Ryan smiled. Yeah, I think we will. When the time is right. When we're both ready. No rush, no pressure, just when it feels right. That sounds perfect, Victoria said. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. And in that moment, Victoria realized something important. Redemption wasn't about becoming perfect. It wasn't about erasing the past or earning back everything you'd lost. Redemption was about waking up every day and choosing to be better. Choosing to honor the people you'd hurt by living differently. Choosing to transform pain into purpose. Sarah Chen would never come back. That tragedy would always be part of Victoria's story. But from that tragedy had grown something meaningful. A foundation that helped hundreds. A movement that changed workplace culture. And a woman who had learned that true strength comes not from never falling, but from how you rise after you fall. 3 years after Emma had stopped Victoria's hand, the foundation unveiled a new memorial garden at their headquarters. At the center stood a statue of a young woman with her hand raised, not in violence, but in a gesture of peace and strength. The plaque read, "Sarah Chen, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is stand firm when others try to push us down. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is say, no more." Emma stood beside Victoria as they looked at the statue together. "She would have liked this," Emma said. Victoria nodded. "I hope so. I hope wherever she is, she knows that her life meant something. That her death wasn't in vain." Emma squeezed Victoria's hand. "She knows. And you've made sure the whole world knows too." As the sun set over San Francisco, casting golden light across the memorial garden, Victoria felt something she never thought she'd feel again. Peace. Not the peace of forgetting. Not the peace of being forgiven for everything. But the peace that comes from knowing you're doing the right thing. That you're honoring those you've hurt. That you're making a difference. And sometimes, that's the best redemption anyone can hope for. The end. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey of accountability, redemption, and change. If this story moved you, please thumbs up, like this video, bell, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories, speech balloon, comment below. Have you ever witnessed someone truly change? Share your story. Outbox tray, share this with someone who needs to hear this message. Remember, everyone deserves respect. Everyone can change. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply say, no more to injustice. New stories every week. See you in the next one. Blue Heart.